Mother-in-law tries to separate her son from his girlfriend, but uncovers a family secret that changes everything she believed. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, the park was alive with laughter and joy. Nathaniel and Alara sat on a checkered blanket spread over the grass, sharing stories and dreams, their eyes sparkling with happiness. The sun warmed their skin, and the scent of blooming flowers filled the air. It was a perfect day, or so it seemed. But not far from them, a figure watched with narrowed eyes. Vivian, Nathaniel's mother, stood under a large oak tree, her heart heavy with suspicion. She had never approved of Alara. "What does he see in her?" she muttered under her breath, her fingers clenched tightly around her purse. The laughter of her son and the woman he loved echoed in her ears, a sound that both delighted and distressed her. As Nathaniel tossed a piece of grass at Alara, causing her to giggle, Vivian's mind raced with thoughts. She paced back and forth, her mind plotting. "I must separate them," she decided, her resolve hardening. "A simple dinner, just the three of us. I will find a way to show Nathaniel who Alara really is." With determination, she approached the couple. "Nathaniel, Alara, I was thinking of having you over for dinner this week," she said, forcing a smile that did not reach her eyes. "It would be nice to spend some time together as a family." Alara looked at Nathaniel, surprise flickering across her face. "That sounds lovely, Mrs. Lawson," she replied, trying to match Vivian's enthusiasm. Nathaniel's smile faltered for a moment, sensing the tension in the air. As they continued to enjoy their afternoon, Nathaniel felt an unease settle in his stomach. He turned to Alara, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern etched across his features. "Of course," Alara replied, but her eyes betrayed her. "It's just, your mom can be a bit intense sometimes, don't you think?" Nathaniel nodded, but deep down, he feared the confrontation that loomed on the horizon. "I'll handle it," he promised, but the weight of his words felt heavy. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the dinner table was set, the room filled with an uncomfortable silence. Vivian prepared herself for the challenge ahead, rehearsing her questions in her mind. This will be straightforward, she thought, but the tension thickened as they gathered around the table. "Thank you for having us, Mrs. Lawson," Alara said, her voice bright but with an undercurrent of nerves. Nathaniel sat between them, feeling the invisible wall that had formed. "Let's eat," Vivian said curtly, her smile strained. As they began to fill their plates, she glanced at Alara, her eyes sharp. "So, Alara, tell me about your aspirations. What do you plan to do with your life?" Alara paused, her fork hovering above her plate. "Well, I've always wanted to work in environmental science. I care about our planet and want to make a difference," she replied, her voice steady. Vivian raised an eyebrow. "Environmental science? That sounds interesting. But how do you plan to support yourself in that field?" Nathaniel shifted in his seat, sensing the tension rising. Alara straightened her back, her determination shining through. "I believe there are many opportunities in that field. I'm passionate about it, and I won't give up on my dreams." As the meal continued, Vivian pressed further, each question sharper than the last. Nathaniel felt torn, caught between his mother's scrutiny and his love for Alara. The storm brewing around them was undeniable, and he wished for peace. "Do you ever think about how your choices affect others?" Vivian asked, her voice dripping with disdain. "What if you fail?" Alara's eyes widened, but she held her ground. "I believe taking risks is part of life. Besides, I have Nathaniel's support, and that means everything to me." Vivian's expression darkened, her heart racing with frustration. "Does it? Or are you just using him to make up for your shortcomings?" Nathaniel felt a surge of anger. "Mom, that's not fair," he interjected, his voice rising. "Alara is not using me. She is strong and capable." Vivian's gaze shifted between Nathaniel and Alara, sensing the brewing storm. The air was thick with unresolved tension, and she knew that this dinner was only the beginning of a much larger conflict. She would find a way to protect her son, even if it meant facing the truth she was so desperate to avoid. The dining room was filled with an uneasy silence as Nathaniel, Alara, and Vivian took their seats around the table. The soft glow of candlelight danced across their faces, but the warmth of the light could not chase away the tension in the air. Vivian's polite smile did not reach her eyes, while Alara's expression was a mix of determination and apprehension. Nathaniel glanced between the two women, sensing the storm brewing just beneath the surface. "Thank you for inviting me, Mrs. Carter," Alara said, trying to break the ice. Her voice was steady, but she could feel the weight of Vivian's gaze upon her. "Of course, Alara," Vivian replied, her tone crisp. "I thought it would be nice to get to know you better." She leaned forward slightly, her fingers tapping lightly on the table. "Tell me, what are your plans for the future?" Alara took a deep breath. "I'm hoping to start my own business. I've always dreamed of opening a small bakery. I want to create a place where people can come together and enjoy good food." Vivian raised an eyebrow, her smile faltering for just a moment. "A bakery? That sounds ambitious. But you know, the food industry is quite competitive. Are you sure you can handle it?" "I believe I can," Alara replied firmly, meeting Vivian's gaze. "I've worked in kitchens since I was a teenager. I've learned a lot, and I'm passionate about it." Nathaniel felt the tension thicken as he watched his mother's expression shift. She was not going to let Alara have the upper hand so easily. "Passion is important, yes," Vivian continued, her voice dripping with condescension. "But passion alone does not pay the bills. What else do you have to fall back on?" Alara's heart raced, but she refused to back down. "I understand that, Mrs. Carter. I have savings, and I'm working on a business plan. I'm committed to making it work." "Commitment is admirable," Vivian said, her tone sharp, "but sometimes it takes more than just good intentions. You know, not everyone is cut out for entrepreneurship." Nathaniel shifted in his seat, feeling the weight of the conversation pressing down on him. He wanted to defend Alara, to tell his mother that she was being unfair, but he also felt a strange loyalty to her. "Mom, can we just—" "Let her speak, Nathaniel," Vivian interrupted, her voice firm. "I think it's important we get to know her true intentions." Alara took a moment to gather her thoughts. "I want to create something meaningful, Mrs. Carter. It's not just about the business for me. It's about sharing joy with others. I believe in what I'm doing." Vivian studied Alara, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Joy is a lovely sentiment, but it doesn't always win in the real world. Tell me, how do you think Nathaniel fits into your plans?" At this, Nathaniel felt his stomach twist. He could sense the underlying challenge in Vivian's question. "Mom, that's not fair." "No, it's a fair question," Vivian insisted, turning her attention back to Alara. "What do you see your future with Nathaniel looking like?" Alara hesitated, her heart pounding. "I see us building a life together, supporting each other's dreams. I care about Nathaniel deeply." Vivian's expression hardened. "But do you truly understand our family? We have a reputation to uphold. You need to be ready for that." Before Alara could respond, Vivian leaned back, crossing her arms. "Family is important, Alara. It shapes who we are. Do you have any family of your own?" Alara's breath caught in her throat. "I do, but—" She paused, her mind racing as she thought of the secrets she held close. "They're not part of my life anymore." Vivian's eyes gleamed with curiosity and something darker. "Why is that? What happened?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. Alara felt a wave of emotion wash over her, but she knew she had to remain strong. "It's complicated," she replied, her voice trembling slightly, "but I've learned to move forward." Vivian smiled, but it was a smile laced with skepticism. "Complicated indeed. Sometimes it's the secrets we keep that shape us the most." The tension in the room escalated, and Nathaniel felt torn. He wanted to protect Alara, but he also wanted to honor his mother. He could see that Vivian was drawing closer to a family secret, one that threatened to unravel everything he thought he knew. Ilara's expression hardened, and Nathaniel knew they were on the brink of something profound. His heart raced as he wondered how this dinner would end and what secrets lay ahead. Ilara felt the weight of the room pressing down on her. She took a deep breath, her heart racing as she prepared to share a truth that had been hidden for so long. The air was thick with tension, and she knew that what she was about to say could change everything. I need to tell you something," Ilara started, her voice steady but soft. She glanced at Nathaniel, who looked both anxious and hopeful. "It's about my past." Vivian's eyes narrowed, her interest piqued. "What do you mean?" she asked, her tone edged with skepticism. Ilara took another breath, gathering her courage. "I'm the sister of your childhood friend, the one who went missing. Her name was Lily." The words hung in the air, heavy with significance. The room fell silent. Nathaniel's heart pounded in his chest as he processed the revelation. Vivian's face turned pale, her mind racing to connect the dots. "Lily?" she whispered, disbelief etched on her features. "Yes," Ilara replied, her voice steady. "I've been searching for her for years. When I found out Nathaniel was with you, I thought maybe I would find some answers." Vivian shook her head slowly, confusion clouding her eyes. "But how is this possible? Lily disappeared so long ago. You're saying you're her sister?" Ilara nodded, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "We were very close. When she went missing, it shattered my family. I never stopped hoping to find her." She paused, her gaze shifting between Nathaniel and Vivian. "I didn't want to keep this from you, but I thought maybe I could find out what happened to her through you." Vivian sat back in her chair, her mind racing. Memories flooded back, of laughter, friendship, and the day everything changed. She felt a mix of emotions: shock, sadness, and a strange sense of connection to this young woman sitting across from her. Nathaniel watched his mother, noticing the way her hands trembled. "Mom, are you okay?" he asked softly, concern etched on his face. Vivian looked at Nathaniel, her expression softening. I don't know. This is so unexpected. I thought I had buried those memories." Ilara leaned forward, her eyes earnest. "I understand this is difficult, but I want to help you find closure, if that's what you need. I've spent years collecting stories and clues about Lily's life. I thought maybe we could work together." Vivian hesitated, her heart battling her mind. "You want to help me? After everything? After how I've treated you?" Ilara nodded. "I know our pasts are tangled, but I believe we can find common ground. We both cared for Lily in different ways." Vivian took a deep breath, the reality of the situation crashing down on her. "I always thought I was protecting Nathaniel by keeping people away, but maybe I was wrong." She looked at Ilara, her eyes searching for understanding. "I'm sorry for how I acted. I was afraid." Nathaniel felt a wave of emotion wash over him. "Mom, it's okay. We're all afraid, but we can face this together." He reached out, placing a hand on Vivian's. "Let's talk about Lily. Let's figure this out." The atmosphere shifted, the tension slowly unraveling as Vivian and Ilara exchanged glances filled with a new understanding. "What do you remember about her?" Ilara asked gently. Vivian's expression softened as the memories poured out. "She was always so full of life, so brave. I remember how she would stand up for others, no matter what. The last time I saw her, we were planning a trip to the beach. Then, everything changed." Ilara listened intently, her heart aching for the friendship they both had lost. "I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have protected her." Their shared pain began to weave an invisible thread between them, bridging the gap that once felt insurmountable. Vivian wiped away a tear, her defenses crumbling. "Maybe together we can find out what happened to her. Maybe we can finally bring some peace to our hearts." Nathaniel smiled softly, his heart swelling with hope. "I think that's a great idea. Let's do this as a family." In that moment, a fragile bond began to form, a connection rooted in loss, but blossoming with the potential for healing. Ilara, Vivian, and Nathaniel were no longer just bound by secrets. They were united by a shared determination to uncover the truth and honor the memory of a girl who had brought them all together, even in the most unexpected of ways. The room was thick with tension, the air heavy after Ilara's shocking revelation. Vivian sat back in her chair, her fingers trembling slightly as she tried to process the new information. Nathaniel watched his mother closely, his heart racing. He could see the storm of emotions brewing within her: confusion, fear, and perhaps a hint of regret. Vivian finally broke the silence, her voice soft but edged with uncertainty. "You're telling me you're the sister of my childhood friend?" Her eyes narrowed, searching Ilara's face for any sign of deception. Ilara nodded slowly, her own heart pounding. "Yes, I am. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't even know if I should. But when you mentioned her name, I felt like I had to." Nathaniel stepped forward, his voice steady. "Mom, maybe we should listen. Ilara has been through so much." Vivian's gaze flicked to Nathaniel, the conflict in her eyes evident. "But Nathaniel, she's still a stranger to us. How can we trust her?" Ilara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their scrutiny. "I understand your concern, Vivian, but I am not here to take Nathaniel away from you. I only want to know my past and to connect with what remains of it." Vivian's expression softened for a brief moment. She leaned forward, her curiosity piqued. "What do you remember about her? About my friend?" Ilara hesitated, searching for the right words. "I remember stories my mother told me about her. They were best friends, inseparable. But when she disappeared, it left a hole in our family. I always wondered what happened." At this, Vivian's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "It was so long ago. I thought I had buried that pain." She looked at Nathaniel, who was watching her with a mixture of concern and encouragement. "I didn't want to lose you too, not after everything." Nathaniel stepped closer, placing a hand on his mother's shoulder. "Mom, I know you want to protect me, but you're pushing Ilara away." He turned to Ilara, his voice gentle. "Can you help us understand?" Ilara nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. "I can share stories about your friend. I can tell you about her laughter, her dreams. Maybe it will help us all heal." Vivian sighed, the weight of her protective instincts beginning to lift. "I have held on to my fears for so long. I thought I was acting in your best interest, Nathaniel. But perhaps I need to learn to let go." The atmosphere shifted as the two women began to truly see each other. Vivian's vulnerability began to shine through her walls. "I don't want to feel like I'm losing you, Nathaniel. It scares me." Nathaniel squeezed her shoulder, his voice firm yet soft. "You're not losing me. I love you, and I love Ilara. It's not about choosing one over the other. It's about finding a way for us all to be together." Ilara felt a warmth spread in her chest. "I want that too. I want to be part of your life, Vivian. I know it's a lot to ask, but I believe we can create something beautiful from this pain." Vivian looked at Ilara, her heart slowly opening. "I see now that you are not just a threat. You are a part of this family, whether I like it or not." Nathaniel's face brightened with a smile, and he looked at both women. "Maybe this is the beginning of something new. We can create our own ties, based on understanding and shared experiences." Vivian nodded slowly, still processing her feelings, but feeling lighter than she had moments ago. "I don't want to control everything. I want to learn how to trust again." Ilara's eyes sparkled with hope. "Then let's start by sharing our stories. We have all been through so much, and now we have a chance to heal together." As they exchanged glances, a new connection formed, fragile yet promising. The shadows of the past began to recede, making way for the light of understanding. In this moment, the three of them stood on the brink of a new beginning, ready to embrace the complexities of love, loss, and the ties that bind them. In the quiet aftermath of the dinner, Nathaniel sat on the edge of his bed, the weight of the evening pressing heavily on his shoulders. His thoughts swirled around the revelations that had shaken their world just hours before. He looked out the window, watching the trees sway gently in the evening breeze, but his mind was far from peaceful. The laughter he shared with Alara at the park felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the tension that had filled the dining room. "Why does everything have to be so complicated?" Nathaniel muttered to himself, running a hand through his hair. He felt torn between his love for Alara and the loyalty he owed to his mother. The memory of Vivian's shocked face haunted him. "I just want everyone to be happy," he whispered, feeling the weight of expectation pressing down on him. Meanwhile, in her own home, Vivian sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped tightly around a warm cup of tea. The steam curled up, but she felt cold inside. The dinner had not gone as she had planned. Instead of exposing Alara's flaws, she found herself staring into the eyes of someone who held a piece of her past. Someone who could change everything. "What am I doing?" she asked herself, her voice barely above a whisper. The walls of the kitchen felt like they were closing in as she considered her own insecurities. "Why am I so afraid of losing Nathaniel?" She took a deep breath and set the cup down, the clink of ceramic echoing in the silence. Later that evening, Nathaniel decided to call Alara. The phone rang a few times before she answered, her voice soft and slightly hesitant. "Hello?" "Hey Alara, it's Nathaniel," he said, trying to keep his tone light, though his heart raced. "I just wanted to check in on you. How are you feeling after, well, everything?" Alara sighed, the sound heavy with emotion. "I'm okay, I guess. It's just a lot to take in. I didn't expect to drop such a big bombshell." "I know," he replied, feeling a swell of sympathy. "But I'm glad you did. It feels like everything is changing, and I don't know how to handle it." "Neither do I," Alara admitted. "But maybe this is a chance for us to connect more? With your mom, too. I want to share my memories of my brother. It might help." Nathaniel paused, surprised by her suggestion. "You really think so? With my mom?" "Yeah," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I think it could help us all understand each other better. I want her to see that I'm not a threat." "I want that too," Nathaniel said, hope stirring within him. "Let's talk to her together." The next day, Nathaniel gathered his courage and invited Vivian into the living room. "Mom, can we talk? Alara has some stories about her brother. I think it could help us all." Vivian hesitated, her brow furrowed with uncertainty. "Are you sure about this, Nathaniel? It's a lot to unpack." "I know, but I think it's important," he insisted, his voice steady. "It might help you understand her and her connection to our family." With a reluctant nod, Vivian agreed, her heart racing as she prepared to face the unknown. "All right, let's give it a try." When Alara arrived, the atmosphere was tense, but charged with possibility. Nathaniel sat between the two women, looking back and forth as they exchanged glances. "Thank you for coming, Alara," Vivian said, her voice softer than usual. "I want to listen." Alara took a deep breath, her nerves bubbling to the surface but holding strong. "Thank you for having me. I want to share my memories of your friend Vivian. I think it's important for both of us." As Alara began to recount stories of laughter and childhood adventures with Nathaniel's mother, something shifted in the room. Vivian listened intently, her expression softening as she heard about the girl she once knew. Alara shared moments that brought smiles to both their faces, creating a bridge that slowly began to close the gap between them. For the first time, Nathaniel saw hope flickering in his mother's eyes. "I remember those days," Vivian said, a smile breaking through her guarded demeanor. "She was always so full of life, Yeah, she was, Alara replied, her own smile brightening the room. And I miss her every day. As the stories flowed, an emotional connection began to weave between the three of them. Nathaniel felt a warmth spreading in his chest, knowing that they were beginning to understand each other in ways that had once seemed impossible. The past, while painful, was becoming a shared experience, a path toward healing and reconciliation. The air felt lighter, and for the first time, Nathaniel believed that perhaps they could all move forward together, hand in hand, embracing their intertwined destinies. The sun hung low in the sky as Nathaniel, Vivian, and Alara gathered in their living room, a space that felt heavy with unspoken words. The air was thick with anticipation, each person aware that this meeting could change everything. Nathaniel shifted nervously, glancing between the two women. He had hoped for a moment like this, but now his heart raced with uncertainty. Vivian took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Thank you both for agreeing to meet," she began, her voice steady but soft. "I know things have been complicated." Alara nodded, her eyes reflecting both hope and apprehension. "I appreciate the chance to talk, Vivian. I want us to understand each other better." Silence filled the room for a moment, each person lost in their thoughts. Nathaniel felt the weight of their shared history pressing down on him. He wanted to reach out to both women, to bridge the gap that had formed between them, but words eluded him. Finally, Vivian spoke again, her gaze fixed on Alara. "I have been thinking a lot about my role in all this. I see now that my fears made me act out of line. I just want what's best for Nathaniel." Alara's expression softened. "I understand, Vivian. I want the best for him too. I care about Nathaniel deeply, and I want to be part of this family, if you'll let me." Nathaniel's heart soared at her words. He leaned forward, eager to contribute. "Mom, Alara is not just someone I love. She's become a part of my life. I want us to be a family, all of us together." Vivian looked at her son, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I have been so focused on my fears that I didn't see how much you care for each other. I'm sorry for that." Alara smiled gently. "We all have our fears, Vivian. It's okay to be scared, but we can face them together." The tension in the room began to lift, replaced with a sense of connection. Nathaniel felt a warmth spreading through him as he watched the two women start to open up to each other. Vivian took another deep breath. "There's something I need to say. I've always been protective because I lost someone I loved deeply. I thought keeping you away from Alara would keep you safe, Nathaniel. But now, I see that love is about taking risks too." Alara's eyes widened with understanding. "I can only imagine how hard that must have been for you. I lost my brother, and that's why I've held on to my past so tightly. It's hard to let go." Nathaniel watched as empathy washed over both women. They were starting to see each other not just as adversaries, but as individuals shaped by their experiences. He felt a flicker of hope that things could change for the better. "Maybe we can share our stories," Nathaniel suggested, his voice eager. "It might help us understand each other more." Vivian nodded, her expression softening. "I would like that. Alara, would you tell me about your brother? I want to understand your pain." Alara hesitated, but then nodded, her voice steadying. "His name was Lucas. He was adventurous and full of life. Losing him left a hole in my heart, and I've struggled to find my place since then." Vivian listened intently, her heart aching for Alara. "I'm so sorry. I can relate to that feeling of loss, even if it's not the same. It makes us all a little scared, doesn't it?" "Yes, it does," Alara replied, her voice filled with emotion. "But I also believe that love can heal us. I want to be here for both of you, to face our fears together." Nathaniel felt a surge of pride for Alara. She was brave, and her words resonated with truth. He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently, an unspoken promise of support. Vivian looked at both of them, her heart swelling. "I want to support you both. I want you to be happy together. I'm ready to let go of my fears." A sense of warmth enveloped the room as they shared a moment of silence, each person feeling the weight of reconciliation. The journey ahead would not be easy, but together they could face their pasts and build a future filled with hope and understanding. As they exchanged glances, Nathaniel realized that this was just the beginning. They were ready to confront their secrets and embrace the love that could bind them together. In that moment, he knew they had taken the first step toward healing, hand in hand, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Share this story if you believe that love can conquer even the toughest challenges. Leave your comment about a time when an unexpected visit changed your life, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this.